Alright, so the authentication aspect of our application is complete. Now we want to move on to the task lists. Alright, and what we want to do is create a list controller which will interact with a list model, and then we'll have a couple different views for the list. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a link up here. I want to go to the list controller, but only if we're logged in. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into my layout, my main layout, and I'm going to put this right after the home list. And what we're doing here is saying if we're logged in, then show this link to the list controller. And from this point on, I'm going to be copying and pasting more than I have been, just because this is getting kind of long, and a lot of the stuff that we're doing, it has to do with what you've already learned. So, you know, interacting with models and things like that. So, I might be copying and pasting a little more. All right, so let's go ahead and log in. So now we have this link, which goes to nothing because we don't have a list controller. So let's create that. Under controllers, new file. I'm going to save this as list.php, and let's just try to speed things up here. Class lists. Okay, so what do we want here? We want to have, first of all, we don't want to be able to access any of this if we're not logged in. Alright, so what I'm going to do is create a constructor, and that's one thing we haven't gone over yet. Although if you're familiar with other languages, you may know what a constructor is, but it's basically something that just runs. It'll run when this class runs. You don't need to have a special method for it to run. So that's where we can create our logic for a login, for authentication. So we're going to say public function, and we do this with a double underscore and then the word construct. Alright, and what we want to do is we want to enter parent construct, because what this is doing is calling the constructor of CI controller. Alright, and we need that, or things won't work like they should. Alright, so we're going to say if this session user data logged in, well, we're going to say if not logged in, so I'm going to put an exclamation mark here, which means not. So if they're not logged in, then we're going to set a message. Okay, so let me just grab this syntax. Okay, and we'll say not logged in, or we'll just say no access. And they're going to go back to the home page. Alright, so this isn't going to do anything. We need to create a view. Alright, so let's create an index method. Public function index. And remember, index is called when you go to a controller like list without any method, without any second word or whatever. Alright, so let's see, we want to say user ID. Yeah, so I'm going to set the user ID to the session, to the user data ID. So this session user data user ID. Alright, so we're going to create a view for this. It's going to be under lists index, so let me just paste that in. Alright, so let's create that view. So in our views folder, we want to create a folder called lists, and in that lists folder we want a file called index.php. This is the list index. Alright, so we're in the list view. Now what we want to do now is try out the access. So let's go to home/lists. Alright, so I'm sorry, we don't want home/lists, we just want lists. Alright, so it just redirected us. We didn't catch that flash data, this no access, so we got to throw that in the home page. And you can see your home view can get quite cluttered with these messages. No access. No access. Alright, so let's try that again. We'll go to lists. Alright, sorry you're not logged in, so that should actually be danger, this class. Alright, that's what we want. So let's log back in now that we know that that works. Alright, and my lists. So what are we going to do here? What we want to do is grab all the lists, which we don't have done yet. So in our database, I'm just going to manually insert a couple lists. So if we go to lists and then insert list name, say family stuff. This list is for family-based tasks, I guess. I'm just making stuff up. Alright, so the user ID would be me. Let me just check my ID. So under users, my ID is 2. Alright, so 2. And then let's see, work stuff. This is business, I don't know. 2. Alright, so now we have 2 lists in our database. And we want to grab those and present them here. So we can do that in the index controller. We want to create a data variable, which will be called lists, and we want to set that equal to this this list model get lists. Alright, so we have to create a list model. So I'm just going to be going just a little bit faster than we were. Alright, so our list model, we have to auto-load that. So in our auto-load file, we just want to add that right here. Okay. Now let's go to our list model, and let's see. CI model, and what was it? Get lists. So public function get lists. Basically here we want to create basically we just want to get all the lists. So we'll say query equals this db get, whoop, and inside here we want the name of the table, which is lists, and let's create, actually we don't need any where clauses, we want to grab all of them. So all we want to do here is we want to return we want to return query result, and that should give us an array with the lists. Alright, so that's being passed to this data lists, okay, and then we're adding the data array in our view, so we should now be able to access it in our view. So let's see, and what we want to do is loop through them. So we'll say PHP for each lists as list. We just want to end for each. Alright, so let's see if we're grabbing the lists. So in the middle of the loop, let's just we'll echo list, and then we should be able to access all the fields. For instance, the title, is it called title? No, list name. So I should be able to say list name, and then we'll just add on a break. Alright, so let's go back to the lists and reload, and we get our family stuff and work stuff lists. Alright, so now we can create our view and we can include our lists. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to make the view a little nicer. Let's put in an H1. Paragraph. This is I don't know, what should I say? I'll just say these are your current lists. Alright, so we're gonna have what I want to do is make each list item an actual HTML list item. So we're going to create a UL and give it a class of list items, and it's going to end after the for each, and then in between here we want list tags. We'll take away this break. Alright, that looks good, and then we'll just have a link. Let me add in a break and then a link to create a new list. Actually, let's put that in a paragraph. Okay, so let's reload, and there's our lists. Now what I want to do is add a link to be able to go to that actual list page. So what we're going to do, actually we want the body to show there as well. So actually in between these list tags we're going to do a couple things. We're going to create a div with the class of list name, and that will go there. And then we want the list body. List body, and this should actually have a link to the list name. So in here we'll have a link which will go to base URL. We go to base URL list/show, which will show an individual list, and then we want the ID of the list. So PHP echo list ID. Okay, let's close that link. This button here, this create new list, is going to go to list/add. Alright, let's take a look at that. Alright. We will add a little bit of styling for this. Actually, let's do that now. I'll just throw it in. So we want to go to our assets, and then CSS, and then custom. And I'm just going to throw in a style. Just give it a border, a couple things. Alright. So that's good. We have a list of lists. So let's create the show method so we can actually view these. So you can see we go to list/show, and that should be /1. Let me fix that. Right here needs a slash. Alright, so that should be it for our index view. Next, let's create a view under lists and save this as show.php. And that'll be our show view. So we need to create a show function. So show, and this is going to take in an ID, and that'll be the list ID. And where this comes from is the URL. Alright, so whoop, that's add. See, so we're going list show, and that's the ID of the list. Alright, so in here I'm going to throw in some data values. Actually, I'm going to throw in the whole thing. Alright, so we're saying list, this value here is equal to, we're just going to get the list, and we're going to include the ID. I'm just going to make this ID. Alright, so this ID is coming from here. And next we're getting the completed tasks, which actually I'm not going to do this yet. Let's comment that out. Alright, so basically we're just getting the information for this particular list, sending it to the show view. Alright, so then in the show view I'm going to paste in our actions. So this will basically just be a little box that has links to add a task, to edit the list, or delete the list. Alright, and we have a little click handler that's just going to give us a confirm and say, are you sure, when we click delete. Alright, so this should now list model, get list. Alright, so we need to create that. Sorry if I'm skipping around here. This is the list controller. We need to create this list model get list. And this is basically pretty easy. You just say get list, and it's going to take an ID, and we're going to say this query equals this db get, and we want to get this from the list table, and we need a where clause, so we're going to say this db where ID is equal to that ID, and then we're just going to return same thing, query result, and that should do it. Alright, what do we got here? Trying to get property of non-object list/show. Three, 4, and 5. Oh, list ID. Now, why is that not showing? Data list, get list. Alright, so let's oh, I know why. Since we're getting one record, alright, we're getting one record by ID, we don't want to return a result, we want to return a row. Okay, because result is for an array. If you're returning an array, a row is for, I'm sorry, result is if you're returning more than one column. Alright, so we get add task, edit. Alright, let's go back to the show view, and let's see. I'm going to paste some stuff in. We're going to have a heading, which will be the list name. We'll have the create date and the body. So let's save that. Alright. And I'm going to throw some more CSS in. So if we go to the custom CSS, and let's put in these. This is for the actions for these right here. Alright, so it puts that over there. Now ultimately we're going to want our tasks for this list to show down here, but we're not going to do that yet. What I want to do now is I want to be able to create a new list. Alright, so let's go to our list controller, and we're just going to paste in a new function called add, which is basically stuff that we've done. The form validation, let's see, we're loading a view called list/add list, which we'll create. We're creating an array with the post data as well as the session user ID, and then we're calling this create list from the list model and then just redirecting it. So pretty easy stuff that we've done. So let's create that view. Under lists, we want to create a new file, and we'll call it addlist.php. Okay, so add list. Let's just test this out. So if we click on that, now we're in the add view. Now this is going to be a form using the form helper. I'm going to paste in. Same stuff again, same idea. We have a list name, a list body. That's pretty much it. So save. This is being sent to the list controller and the add function, which we have here. So let's reload this and see if actually we need to create the model method, which is create list. Alright, so let's just copy that list model. And this is taking our data array, which includes all our post values. And this is going to be pretty quick. We're just going to create an insert variable. We'll say this db insert data. And then we're just going to return that variable. Alright, so let's reload this. And we'll add a new list. Let's say, I don't know, we'll say sports. All sporting events. Okay, add list. Alright, so we're getting, you must use the set method to update an entry. I'm not sure why that happened. Let me see. Insert. What's this DB insert? Oh, we don't have the table name. We're going to put lists. Alright, and we also need a message. We have this list created message, which we want to show in the list index view, which is right here. And I actually have quite a few messages that I want to paste in here. These don't matter right now. The only one that matters is the created, but we're also going to delete and update a list, so put those in there now. And let's go back to my list, create a new one. Say sports. Alright, your task list has been created, and there it is. Alright, so now we can view, we can select all our lists, we can add them. Now we want to be able to update them. So if we click on this, we want to click on Edit List and go to the Edit method. So if we go to Lists, and I'm going to paste in the Edit method. Okay, so we have Edit, and we have to pass an ID, a list ID, form validation, and here, this data, this list, we're going to grab all of the list data for this particular list by ID. Alright, and then same thing down here, we're just creating a data array, and then we're submitting it through the model through Edit List. Alright, so now we got to go to our model. Let's go to our model, and I'm going to say public function edit list, and anytime you have an edit anything, you need to pass in an ID. Alright, so we're going to pass in the list ID, and we want to pass in the data array as well. And we'll say this, what are we saying? This DB where, we want to say where ID is equal to list ID, query this DB get, and then the table name, which is lists. Okay, and then we just want to return the query, the row. Alright, so that's that. Edit list. Now that's the edit function. Now we want to get the list data from the model as well. So let's go back to list model, and let's see. You know what? I did this wrong. This is actually, shoot. Let me just get rid of this. I put the wrong function in there. Let me just grab it. Alright, so we're saying where ID equals list ID, we want to update. We'll do this DB update, and we're passing in the data array, and we're returning true. Now let's paste in the get list data, which is basically what we just did up here. It's just returning the data from a single list. Alright, and the last thing to do is to create a view, an edit view. So under the list view, we want a new file. Save it as editlist.php, and I'm going to paste in a form. Okay, same thing that we've been doing, and let's try that out. So I'll go to edit lists, let's say family stuff, we'll say instead of base task we'll say stuff. Okay, it's been updated, and you can see that it's changed to this family stuff. Alright, last thing, delete. We want to be able to delete the list. So in our controller, we need a delete function. And it's basically calling delete list in the model. Okay, so I'll go to the list model, and we'll paste in delete list. Alright, so that should do it. Let's reload this and delete list. Are you sure? Alright, so call to undefined method delete tasks of list. Alright, so what this function that we don't have does is it deletes all the tasks that are associated with this list. And we haven't done tasks yet, so let's just hold off on that. Alright, so that looks good. Basically, the lists are done. It shows on our home page. Actually, no, they don't. That's what we need to do. We need to go to the home view, and I'm just going to paste in a table that'll show all our lists. And let me see, reload. Okay, so it's not getting the lists, and that's probably because this isn't set, this list. So if we go to our home controller, we just want to say if we're logged in, then get the lists. All right, so if session data logged in, then we're grabbing the user ID, and then we're getting all the lists from that user, and we'll also get the tasks, but we'll hold off on that. Alright, so we just need to create this get all lists in the model, in the list model. I guess you could also put it in the home controller if you wanted. Alright, so paste that in. Same thing, we're just getting it with the where clause, with the user ID, and we're saying this DB order by. We want to order it by the create date and ascending. Okay, so that's how that works. And there's our lists. If we view, alright, so our lists are basically done. Next we'll be creating our task functionality.